Right? Okay. Sorry everybody about that. Every week I'm like, and this time I'm ready, and this time I'm ready, but now we're really ready. Okay, so first of all, welcome Leah, welcome Brittany. Anybody else first timers? No, everybody's here, like, and you're back. We're so excited. Thank you. Okay, so I promised Leah like a full on recap. I think that also after Purim we lost like brain cells, so like we have to like regather our thoughts on like where we were holding, and like myself as well. I definitely like went full into Pesach mode though, because like I panic. So I like ran to bingo last night. I'm like, oh my God, I have to like start cooking Pesach. And I'm like, Faigy, relax. Like you have time. But you know when you see everybody doing it, there's like this pressure. Okay, so basically let's just like bring us like all back to like Tanya 2.0, a much slower version. I was thinking today also, like I really wanted to try to pack in like a little bit more. And then I'm like, one second. Last time around, we did one parak a week and it was like tons of information. So this time with doing it inside, we're going to do, let's say, a parak every 2 to 3 weeks. So it's going to be slower. So like first I almost felt the pressure on me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to walk away with this like huge thing. And then I'm like, one second. We're walking away with like learning something here a little bit more in depth. And that's how we're going to do it. So don't worry. It's slow. It's good. I told Leah that like I myself have to listen to my last week's class the day before because I don't even remember what we were learning last week. It's so much information and so many things happened. So let's just bring it back all the way to the beginning. We are learning Sefer Tanya after the Baal Tanya, not Gemara. Sarah had a good story. She told somebody, do you want to come with me to Tanya tonight? And she's like,
what are you guys learning?
What do you learn? What are you learning there? And she's like, Tanya. And she's like,
what's Tanya?
She's like, is that Gemara?
I'm like,
and honestly, I'm laughing, but you know what? That was me 8 months ago. So it's okay. Like, we're all here. We're all learning this. Like, this is also like the first time around. Okay. So the Baal Tanya compiled this Sefer, and he took all the teachings from like the Arizal and from Rav Chaim Vital and from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and he pulled together all these ideas and big, huge concepts that we had in Torah. He compiled it into this Sefer, which he called Likutei Amarim. Likutei is like a collection of mamarim, of sayings, of teachings, and he develops these ideas. He warned us in the beginning, and he's like, okay, disclaimer, it's going to be a drop harder than you think. Not everybody has the same intellectual capacity, so just beware. Also, Eino Domesh Mi'el, like, you can't expect to know everything because you're not seeing me, you're not hearing me, you're just reading it, and everybody has their own interpretation. So he kind of like prepared us that like this is a big task and it's okay. And I think like for myself, that's what I took away. Like, it's okay, Faigy. You're going to learn this many, many times over, and every time you learn it, it's going to be with like a new perspective, a new twist, a new like insight, and it's just, it builds up the excitement. It's just more exciting. So then we explained how this Sefer can be used as going into Yechidus with the Rebbe. That you have a question, you have a concern, and you want to walk out with knowing something. And this going in with these lenses of every parak is another question that I have that I have to ask the Rebbe, and that we all go through at certain points in our lives, and he's there to answer us. It's very like specific for the people who are coming to ask these questions. And who are these people who are opening up this book? Who are we? What are we now? What do we know about ourselves? What? Before that, we're Beinonim. We're not looking at this to prove Hashem. We're looking at this because we know there's a Hashem.
we're searching.
And we're searching. And we want to do it. We want to fix something. We're Mavakshem. We're asking, like Hashem, like, we know that you're here, but not everything always coordinates with the way that I feel and then the way that I act. And I'm just confused by it. And he starts off the first parak by comforting us and saying what? Don't worry, you're pregnant with twins, right? You're normal, right? You have two things inside of you. So he calmed us down immediately. The first question that we had was like, I don't understand. Like, I think one way, I believe one way, I was taught one way, I went to school for so many years to learn one thing, and then all of a sudden, I'm just not doing it. I don't know. It's just not working for me. It's a little hard. And he says, it's okay. It's normal. And that's because you have two souls. And with these two souls inside of you, they're constantly battling for your attention. And what are these two souls? What do we know? What do we refer to them as? Nefesh HaBahamis and Nefesh HaElokis. So then we start off by saying what? You get this first one first. What's the first one that you get? Nefesh HaBahamis. Nefesh HaBahamis comes from which side? I feel like we already have enough material to like Chazar. It's like exciting. It's in the blood. And where does it come from? From which side? From Sitra Achar. He comes from the other side. He comes from Sitra Achar. He comes from the side of the other side, the side of Klipa. Okay, and with that comes unpackaging necessary. Like it comes very, very, very packaged. But what is it packaged with? It's packaged with a klipa of noga. Look at that. I know. Somebody asked me, klipas yoga? Somebody sent me like funniest question. She's like, you're not saying it clearly. I'm like, no, noga. Like it's beautiful. It's clear. It's glistening. It's shiny. And why is that? What does that mean that it's shiny? It means that when it's thin and it's easily removed, it's what? It's like what's the fruit that it looks like? Like nails, right? What's the fruit? A grape, right? A grape is like, I know that there's a peel on side. I have to peel that off in order to get to the inside. Even though grapes, you could actually just eat. Grapes are like the best fruit. It's like just wash it and eat it. It's like no checking, no nothing. It's like everything else is like, do you eat strawberries? Do you not eat strawberries? Like, grapes. I'm like, that's like my go-to fruit. But this idea where you could peel it off and then you could see the inside. But what about this? What about grapes? What about this klipas noga that we have that you didn't have? It's covering something else. What's the inside that maybe, what first has to be peeled off? Like what's that nefesh habahamis made out of? What's it created from? We said blood, and what's inside of it? Oh my gosh, hi Mary. Whoa. I'm like, people who are like not night people and then they show up, it's like, whoa, okay, come, you can sit here on this chair. I'm like, please come, it's complicated this week. The idea that it's in your blood and that inside that blood, it gives you your life. It comes to you, Hashem gives you this nefesh habahamis, this first nefesh. First of all, he doesn't refer to it as nefesh habahamis in the beginning. He refers to it as just the nefesh that comes from sitra achar, that comes from klipa. But we know that it's in our blood and it gives us our traits. It gives us our fire, our earth, our water, right? All of that, all the elemental life that we have is found within this nefesh, and it's our anger, and it's our rage, and it's our happiness, and it's our laziness, and it's all of that. But, and it sounded off very scary. It sounded off like, oh my gosh, like I don't want this. I don't want to be part of this. This nefesh habahamis is a terrible thing. And the answer is that no, it's not. It has a klipas noga on it, and as soon as you peel it off, you'll find the good in it. So yes, maybe you're angry, but if you peel off like the bad part of the anger, then you have a drive. Then you want to build bridges and tunnels and you want to be a politician, right? Because you have ego, right? And then you use it for something good, right? Or if you are a person who is, let's say, always lazy, right? And you peel off the klipa of laziness and then you realize, oh, maybe I'm just a really good meditator, right? Like maybe I'm one of those people, right? So you can find the good within all those character traits. And in addition to that, Yidden have this klipas noga, which is special to them, but also in addition, Yidden have, we are Baishanim, we are Rahmanim, we're kind people. We have something built in within us. Don't think that you only have instinctual, egotistical drives. You have, it's covered with a lot of extra padding for Yidden. So there's always hope in it. So like, don't get scared. There's always hope in it, something good. Then we explained a little bit about, so that was the first nefesh habahamis, that it looks like it's bad, but everything can always be turned into the good, remove the klipa. How did that klipa come to begin with? Anybody remember? Adam and Chava, right? When they ate from the tree. When they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they brought it inside of them, and all of a sudden, now everything is confusing. It used to be everything you would see was good and evil, and it was real. But once it comes inside of you, you're like, I don't know, maybe it's not so bad. Like, do you ever have these moments, like I was in bingo yesterday, and you have to pay for boxes, right? And then I didn't have enough boxes, and then at the end, there were boxes from people outside, and I'm like, why don't I just take some of these boxes from there, bring it in the store, and fill it up? And then I was like, he gets 39 cents. Do you want to come back as a cat, for 39 cents? Go pay the 39 cents. And I'm just I'm battling it inside of me, and I'm thinking.
I didn't know you had to pay for that. It's 5 times I went there.
Okay, you'll go tell them, right? So you have to scan them, right? So what? Right when you come in.
So many things at Tanya.
So this is why we came to Tanya for bingo boxes. So I don't even remember why I'm saying this story. Oh, so I'm thinking in my mind.
It's not so bad.
Rationalizing, right? We're rationalizing why it's not so bad and things like that. But that's all because I now have to, before Adam and Chava, it would just be don't take box, pay, and then you get the box. And now it's do I have to pay? Did they see me? I don't know. And everything goes by your own filter of deciding whether it's good or evil. So that's really the klipa that we have to do. And that we explain that we do that through avodas habirurim, which is sifting, which is sifting through, is this okay? Is this not? And that's really how we try to spend our lives, is finding the good within evil and pulling it out. By the way, we said avodas habirurim. What's that malacha on Shabbos that you're not allowed to do? Borer, right? It comes from that idea of sifting. But when you are allowed to do borer, this is not a Hilchot Shabbos class, but you are allowed to do it when you take the what? Chalmi Pasolis, yes, right. Yay. Deborah, she gets an apple. We should start giving out Tanya dollars. That you remember, right? So that's what it is. You're allowed to take the good out from the bad. So that's the idea. Then we moved on. So that was Parak Aleph. Then we started moving on to Parak Beis, and we said that guess what? We have a neshama shenis. We have a secondary neshama. And then we explained in detail, what does it mean that it's secondary? But isn't this higher? Isn't this nefesh elokis that comes from Hashem? Isn't it better? Shouldn't it be first? Why do we get it second? Right? And then we explained how babies are all nefesh abahamis, right? Feed me, change me, everything. You have to do every little last thing for them, and it's do it now, otherwise they scream, and then you create little monsters by giving in to them, so maybe you don't always give in to them, but that's all they have, right? Why? Because they don't have that ability yet to discern. They don't have the ability to be held accountable because they don't have the second neshama. So the first neshama that we get, you might think wait, maybe it's not a good thing, but we explained always in Chassidus that the dark things are always really contain the greatest light, which is something that I'm still it's so profound. If somebody would ask me what my favorite Hasidic thought or teaching would be, obviously I would always think it's Eino Mavado, but obviously Eino Mavado ties into everything, but for me, one of my favorite things that I've learned in Chassidus is that the darkest time, that the darkness, within the darkness is the light. It's the potential. Right. That's what we're just talking about. The neshamos that look like they fell very far, and neshamos that look like the world of tohu and of chaos and the world of Esav and the world of what we said in the beginning, how when Hashem first created the world, He created many worlds in order for this world to form. Those higher worlds, those upper worlds, they didn't have any kalim to contain it. So they were just off-shooting sparks. The way Shais Taub described it was these neshamas are the overnight successes and everything that comes along with it. The people who just make tons of money and then spend it and blow it and you're what happened? I always think of these Hollywood kids, Macaulay Culkin. What happened to him at 21? Come on, you were Kevin. You were a rock star. Why? Why did you turn that way? And those are neshamas of Torah. They have so much capacity. They have so much capability. They're artsy. They're right. It's sad. Well, it's American culture to worship that. So when you worship that nefesh abahamis, you need to have the blend of the two neshamas. When you don't, it is. It's very sad. It's very sad. But now that we know this, we have this knowledge that these big huge neshamas are the first ones to come down. They're the rough draft. Then you realize, wow, they're really big people. They're very, very big people. And we gave that mashal of the stone wall, the rocks that come off the top. They fall the farthest. Those neshamos that started off in the world of Tohu, that originated all there, that had so much energy, that they didn't even know what to do, that they burst. Those neshamos are the neshamos of Tohu. And then came the second one, was the neshamos of the Nefesh Elokis, the ones from Hashem. Okay? The piece of Hashem. Chelik Elokah. Yeah.
I tried to explain this to my pediatrician. Well, I was what? I'm yeah, you're gonna see this generation of ADHDers. They're gonna bring Mashiach.
Oh, he's my gosh.
Sure. He's what are you talking about? I'm I can give you a whole.
Oh my gosh! By the way, my favorite class in the entire world from Rabbi Yassi is the ADHD prophets. That all these neshamos of ADHD and inattentive and imaginative and creative and kids who are we talked about this last week, how kids who need to be on a school and a farm, all those kids that literally need Ritalin to stay focused, we're going to realize 1 second, these are neshamos of future Nevi'im. The capacity to be able to have nevuah and to be able to think that you can talk to Hashem, you better be imaginative and creative and out of the box kid, because otherwise, what medium are you going to speak to Hashem in? How on earth would you be able to speak to Hashem? So it's a very cool concept that, I want to just see if anybody's even here. I don't even know if this is working. But it's a very cool concept when you start seeing these neshamos of Tohu as very, very big neshamos, okay? The neshamos that are of Yaakov or Ishtam, Yoshev, Olam, those are the neshamos that they did amazing from like 1930 up until like 1995, I would say. Like, you know what I mean? Like those are the scholastic kids, those are the lawyers, and those are the doctors, right? Like think about your parents and think about your older siblings or like family members. Like I was a lawyer, I was a doctor. Like there was no such concept of like entrepreneur, and I'm gonna start my own business, and I'm an artsy creative. Also the whole concept of like the internet and all of this stuff gives real kalim for these neshamos. It's like the coolest thing. Yeah, and this, if we could explain this to doctors.
I'm not taking for coffee.
Yeah. It's the best class. It literally talks about how the capacity for nevuah is creativity and a tad of inattentiveness and lack of focus, because it lets you go into like these places. The best story is, like I say this all the time, like Yal, my daughter, she's diagnosed with ADHD, she knows it and she embraces it, but like when she was in school, the teacher would be like, where are you? Like in class, and she'd be like, I don't know, but I love it here. In the best way. Like, I love it here. Like, this is where I want to be. Like, I want to imagine roller coasters and Cholmite and Pesach, whatever. My 6-year-old who literally cannot breathe that she's going to Orlando. We're like, okay, we get it. You're going to Orlando. And in her mind, it's like everything. She sees it every single day. And I'm like, that's because it's different neshamos. It really, really is. So it's a very cool concept, and it's something that we should really look at when we look at our kids and we look at ourselves, and recognize it, that that's the first one that comes down. Then comes this nefesh elokis, and it's a piece of Hashem mamish. Chilek elokam mimal mamish. I'm going to start sending like song. I do this, but like song. You know, like at the end of a movie, it sends you like the score of like the musical score. I'm going to send you like the musical score of Thank You Hashem songs for this. So the Chilek elokam mimal mamish, you have to listen to. So Chilek elokam mamish is a pasuk, is brought down from you, but the Alter Rebbe adds mamish. And what does that mean when he says mamish? Literally, actually a piece of Hashem, like mamashas, but also even deeper, he says, in this physical world where you think maybe Hashem doesn't lie, he's right here. He's like mamish in the physicality. Don't think Hashem is only in shul and Hashem is only at the kosa. Hashem is always with you. He's a part of you. He's inside of you, b'mamashas. And then we gave 2 examples of how Hashem got this neshama into us. So 1 second. So the Nefesh Bahamas comes into us, pumps through us through our blood. The Nefesh Elokis comes to us through breath, right? Vayipach ba'apash. No, through the brain. Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. So I didn't verify this yet, but I probably should call Esther Ween. But somebody explained to me that she says that it was blown in from over here. Have you ever heard that? Like from the top of their head? Yeah. That it's blown in from here, but then we're also taught that it was blown by Yipach Ba'apav Nishmas Chaim, in his nose, it was from the breath. And what does it mean that Hashem gave over his breath into us and that filled us up? So we gave 2 mishalim, how this is like literally a piece of Hashem. Anybody remember the mashal? Bracha was here, Bracha Jaffe, she gave an example of where does breath come from?
Your diaphragm?
From your diaphragm, from like inside of you, that your breath is literally like inside of you, in your depths. Like when you speak, it comes just from here. But before you speak, you have to bring up the breath. And if you do it properly, you have to bring it up from your stomach. And then it comes through. So it's in your depths. Hashem gave us this neshama that's inside of like our bellies, like in our inner parts of us. And then it comes up through our breath. And then we gave a second mashal. Anybody remember that one? How Hashem gave us a piece of himself inside of us. We said like the concept of like in biology, like when a child is created, it's formed in the brain of the father, right? Everything is thought about, everything starts off over here, and then it comes out literally as like the seminal drop of the father that contains within it mamashas. It contains within it DNA and essence of this coming child. Then it's caught by the womb of the mother, and there it grows, and there it develops. But what we explained is, we gave this mashal as how Hashem, just like a father gives his DNA code, gives his essence over to a child, and then literally their child is like them. Like if you play piano, then your kid will play piano, right? Like, or like, you know, those families who are just like, they're artsy and they're musical, right? Like I always think of Mary's family. I'm like, one day, like, maybe the next generation, like, I'll have a kid playing guitar and music, whatever, and I get, like, so sad. I mean, my husband writes a lot of music, but there's no one actually, like, playing music, like, we have drums or whatever, but I'm like, did some great-grandmother, like, play a musical instrument that, like, we have that essence inside of us, that gene for music. We don't, but maybe it was passed on. But that idea of that when a father gives over his DNA, it's literally a part of them. So too, Hashem thought about us in His Chachma, and then we were created. Okay, so that's kind of where we ended off last week. We're going to go into this like a drop more. Any questions so far? See, the Chazara was okay, Leah? This was like mamish for you. Okay, fine, perfect. Okay, so let's go like this. Okay, we're all cut up. It took us like a nice 15 minutes. You know what? It makes me very happy because the first time around, remember when we were like, as the classes got longer, we spent more time doing Chazara. So I think Chazara is probably the most important part because then it like really becomes part of you. Also, I'll say this, and this is like because you're really all like shlachim now. I think I said it right. That you are. Once you have this information, the only way for you to acquire it is by teaching it. So by you giving over these concepts, whether it's to your pediatrician or it's to your friend or whatever, and you don't have to be like, in my Tanya class on Thursday, we were learning. Like, no, it becomes part of your life. You realize, like, this is the only thing that I end up talking about.
Are you kidding me? Ella couldn't breathe when she met you, and she's like, she came up, she's like, I bet you were Betachtonim, not and the boy, the baby, Kripa, the bird.
Oh, right. I forgot about that part. That was also Chazara. See, you sure reminded. I forgot about this part of the Chazara that the Nefesh Elokis comes, it's secondary because it comes later on in life. Not only is it secondary in, let's say, when it was created, it's secondary in the fact that it fuses within you at different points in your life. So I just found out also that with boys it starts at their bris, with girls and boys it starts at bar mitzvah, and then with marriage it develops even more, and until your nefesh elokis and your nefesh bahamas become one. Like that's obviously what ends up happening. I think eventually at the end of time, but then we didn't even get to Benoni yet. Like how crazy is this that we didn't even this is like it's so much. It's too much.
No, somebody's looking.
Okay, so like this. Okay, so let's go inside a little bit. So that was the end of it. So what we're going to continue now is we're going to go into, there's like a little bit of a machlokas that like is presented here, that it means that Hashem created us in His wisdom. Okay, do you ever hear this phrase like kulam b'chachma sisa? I feel like I had a song. It's a song. What song is it? It's Miami Boys Choir? Okay, so let's like analyze this song. Kulam b'chachma sisa.
The London Girls Choir, no? Like,
Yeah. No, maybe that's what it is.
Yes.
Kula, I know. What is it? I'm like, how does it go? Mala Eretz Kinyanecha. Right, okay. Marabu. Oh, yes, it's Marabu. Okay. So I have to find it. Okay. By the way, those girls' choirs back then, they were like everything. Like,
They came here to New York one year, the London Girls Choir, and I worked backstage, and I felt like a mother.
it's the coolest thing. Okay, so kula b'chachma asisa. So everything Hashem made everything with His chachma. Okay, now what does it mean chachma? What do we know about chachma? If we were created in Hashem's brain and then we emerged out here in this world, we popped out, right? We understand biologically how it's created, right? Like the Father has certain thoughts, right? We're going to talk about this also like a little bit towards the end of the class, and then it creates something that is literally a piece of the Father that then is cradled in the mother. And that's the same mashal of how Hashem literally like almost gave birth to this neshama that He passed on to us. My friend is telling me that I tried out for the London Girls Choir. Something like that. Or something like that, yeah. I can't remember. You'll have to remind me after class. So, what does it mean that Hashem created us in His Chachma? So what's Chachma? What do we know about Chachma? We learned about Chachma. How to translate Chachma? What does Chachma mean? Wisdom, right? It's over here. Sometimes we've explained Chachma as like a burst of energy, like something that comes from nothing, right?
Well,
that it's
I know
just
that whenever we have an idea, same idea is that it's Hashem, and we're like, oh, why should we paint our wall? It's from Hashem. Hashem gave
right.
the desire.
Anytime we have a desire, we know that Hashem planted that desire in our head,
idea.
right?
It's an idea.
It's like this burst of idea that Hashem thought to create us. Now, it's interesting because does Hashem have thoughts? Like I always go back and forth. Like, is it personification? Like where we say Hashem has like attributes, right?
I don't think this world was an impulse decision. So
It was definitely not an impulse decision. And we also learned last week that like there was a lot of rough drafts before this world came to be, right? So Hashem definitely thought about us. So there's actually, it comes out in here in the Tanya, it says there's a machlokas between the Rambam and the Maharal and it's interesting because really they did not live at the same time at all. What? They did not. I know. Like, and sometimes I'm like, I wouldn't know if they lived. But now that I'm learning a lot about the Rambam, the Maharal, and the Ari, and he talks about the Ramah, they did not live at the same time. So it's cool when you're like, wait, 1 second, machlokases are happening like l'malam and azman, like above time. Like they're happening in Shemayim. You think machlokases are over down here in this world? No, they're also happening in Shemayim. And the Rambam says you cannot. How could you say? The Rambam says that Hashem created this world with His chachma. And then the Kabbalists, they say, what do you mean? You can't say that Hashem has attributes. Hashem is greater than any attribute. You can't give Hashem, you can't personify Hashem. You can't say Hashem has chachma. So they go back and forth, and this is like a little bit of an argument, and they basically say that from when Hashem created this world, from the minute He thought about creating this world and coming down, so the chachma of the world of Atzilas. Remember when we spoke about this in the last class of Tanya? The last class of Tanya, we were talking about how Hashem created this world. And we said that Hashem created this world in the Chachma of Atzilas. And then it went down and down and down and down. And then it was caught in the Malchus of Atzilas. And then it went into the Chachma of Bria. And then it went, remember that whole thing? It was like a chain of events. He the human body had unfolded. So what the whole Machlokas is basically answered by saying that from creating this world and down, from Chachma of Atzilos and down, we could say that Hashem has Chachma. We can imagine the Chachma that Hashem has. But from before this world, from the worlds of Tohu, and before this world actualized, before Hashem was Ha'alem, before Hashem was hidden, right? What's the Hebrew word for a world? Olam. Right? So before the Olam was here, then we could say Hashem, we cannot even describe Hashem, we cannot even describe Chachma, we have no idea. But once Hashem, first, what did Hashem have to do in order to reveal Himself in this world? Tzimtzum, right? Vocabulary words here. So we have tzimtzum, meniyas, klipas, right? Tzimtzum. Hashem had to contract Himself, He had to pull back in order for this world to come. And that's when we can finally say Hashem actually has attributes. But we don't really give Hashem attributes, okay? So there's this little machlokas, it goes on back and forth. And it says, V'hodu lo chachmei kabbalah k'moshe kasav b'pardes haramak. So like what the Ramak says, V'gam lefi kabbal sari, and also according to the Torah and the Kabbalah of the Ari, he says, Besod his lavshas are ein sof baruch hu. Another word, by the way, another code word in Tanya and in Chassidus is Ar Ein Sof. Another song I'll add it to the playlist. It's on the score. It's the last song on the Mendy Warsh album. By the way, you're starting to realize that Thank You Hashem music is all Chassidus. It's not even a secret. In the beginning, we were hiding it and whatever. And then I told Alibach, at the end of every class, we're going to learn a song and understand the meaning. So maybe this week we'll do Back of the Wagon, because everyone's like, Faigy, what is happening in Back of the Wagon?
Favorite song.
Really? Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to hear.
I said a story about the Rosh Hashanah wagon.
You did?
I did.
What?
It sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
It was
So another concept in Hasidus is this concept of Arin Sof. So he's saying this is applied to the mystic principle of the clothing of the Arin Sof. So we refer to Hashem before He created this world as the Arin Sof, a light that was, a light that is, a light that will always be. That's the words of the song. And this idea where we can't understand who Hashem was, but as soon as he constricted Himself a little bit with Tzimtzum, then, so he says, Al Yedei Tzimtzum Rabim, by the means of numerous contractions. By the way, it's so crazy when, now that we're starting to understand, the anatomy of a child, a father, and the seminal drop, and then the mother catching it, and then contractions, Tzimtzum, it's everything is starting. I'm just making this up, and I'm not sure if it's all correlated, but I feel like it has to be. The concept of Hashem restricting Himself and pulling back in order to create space for more, labor pains. Okay, anybody who has a C-section, sorry.
Yeah.
Right, okay,
The
sorry.
head and the legs first.
The head, the legs, we're going to talk about this, the head and the feet today, and it's oh my gosh, biology, anatomy, science, it's all Hashem, it's crazy. Okay, so by the means of numerous contractions in the vessels of the spirit of Chabad. So Hashem is Ar Ein Sof. In order to create this world, He had to do tzimtzum, He had to pull Himself back, make a space for this world. And that's when we refer to that space that He made. He developed this first idea in Chachma da Atzilos, in the highest world of Atzilos. That's the Avshi Weingot song, Atzilus, Adam Kadmon. He talks about these concepts. Okay. This is like a music class, a Tanya class. Okay, actually the acronym, and we spoke about this, the acronym of Chabad is Chachma Bina Das. So Hashem pulls himself back, and then he deposits his light in the Chachma of Atzilus, into Chachma Bina Das, which is the divine intellect in the world of Atzilus. An English word for Atzilus would be emanation, but emanation is like such a... I think of it, we don't know what that means either, right? So we are Ein Sof, and then we're like Atzilus, but I said, we're just getting used to these words, that's it. Okay, fine, and then we say that where does Hashem develop this world? Kulam b'chachma asisa. Hashem creates this world, it's written, you have made them with all with wisdom. What are we talking about? Hashem made us with his wisdom. That Hashem thought about us so much that he created us. What does that sound like? From like the first classes of Tanya. Hashem thought about it so much that it gave birth to emotions, right? Your head rules over your heart. The things that you think about, remember we said this so many times, the things that you think about, the things that you dream about, the things that you are connected to here, the things that we think about.
Come out on Instagram and TikTok.
Right, yes!
Right?
Oh my gosh, the things that we think about come out as Instagram ads, right? Okay, so that's really what happened. So Hashem thought about us, kulam b'chachma asisa. He created us with his chachma. And it's so cool because what's the world of Asiya? If we say the world of chachma is the world of Atzilus, it's where Hashem's thoughts are, and it's the greatest thing, it's where Hashem created the world. Then we say Asisa, the world of Asiya. The world of actions of doing, right? And that's the lowest form, right? There's no actions in the world of Atzilus. There's no actions in the world of Bria. There's no actions in the world of Yitzira. That's why we do things down here in this world for the people who can no longer do. So where did Hashem create us? Hashem took his chachma from the highest world of Atzilus and he created us here in Asiya. So don't for 1 second think like, oh, this world, I need to move on, I need to go, I'm ready for the next world, we're ready for this. No, Hashem implanted his wisdom into this world. In this world of Asiya, the lowest world, the thing that you think that maybe is not the greatest thing, in this world is where Hashem developed his wisdom and created us. He didn't create us in any other world. He created us specifically here. So I loved this idea of Kulam Chachma Asisa, also because it's a song. But really what he's saying is, the Alter Rebbe is saying that that these souls are from the same level. I feel like something's off upstairs. I have no idea what's going on in my house. Sarah's my godmother. She's like, I'll see what's going on in there. It sounds like there's horror movies. That's the only feel I know. Sorry about that. Okay, fine. Okay, so now do we understand this concept of that Hashem created us with his chachma? Because you say, 1 second, Hashem can't have chachma. Hashem is greater than chachma. Hashem is above chachma. But what do we know? Now that Hashem, until he created this world, he's Ein Sof, he's untouchable. We have no idea. There's no personification of Hashem. The second he decided to create this world, he emanates into this world, and then he creates us, and he creates us with his chachma from the highest place, from his intellect, from his thought, and then it creates this prototype of a little teeny piece of Hashem, like of a shooting out of it, like a mini, literally a chelik al kami ma'al mamish. Okay, so now it's in us. Okay, so now here's the next question. Okay, so remember we're coming into Yechidus, we're asking the Rebbe, we have a question. So if we're all from Hashem, right, we all have a chelik al kami ma'al mamish. We were all thought about, and then we were all created. So then, what's the question? He says, "Va'af sheyish rivos mine chalkos madrigos v'neshamos gavoa me'al gavoa le'ein kates." So then, it's true that we're all from Hashem, but why are there so many different types of yidden? Like, if we're all from Hashem, like we shouldn't be all identical twins? Like,
so boring.
it's so boring, right? I know it is so boring, right? So we'll develop the answer. There's no like set answer. I'm always like, that's why like it could go anyway. Let's try to understand. So first of all, that would be boring. Great, I love that one. What else?
It wouldn't challenge us enough. Like it's the whole reason of being in this world is like to get past like all the hardships, and that's probably one of the biggest hardships.
So it helps us deal with other people and helps us
What about
overcome.
two parents that have like 17 children? They all look,
They love them, but they like Hashem loves every single one of us and every single one of our children.
We're not saying that Hashem doesn't love us, but how could it actually be if we're saying that we're all thought about from Hashem and we're all given a chelik of Hashem?
I never
Shouldn't
heard
we
of
be?
someone making in one line and for every different T-shirts and sweatshirts and I mean I'm sorry if it's
Right.
so like we love some of those different versions of us, all for the same purpose, all to clothe company. And here we're all here to serve Hashem, do mitzvahs.
We're all here to serve Hashem and do mitzvos, but we happen to come out differently. Right.
Serve Hashem in different ways. We're not all going to be farmers. We're not all going to be Judaic studies teachers. Right. So we know
we
this.
can learn from each other.
So we can learn from each other. Yes, Paloma. Wait.
We have two Shabbos.
After class.
Why we think that we're all different is our perception, but we are all the same.
So deep. What Paloma just said.
Inside,
Paloma.
inside, no person ever looks alike. Even identical twins.
Right.
Right.
But we all
Right.
have a piece. We all have
But
a piece of
inside,
us.
yeah.
So inside, we're starting to realize that maybe we're not as different as we think. Yeah.
No, but we have two neshamas, so maybe the Hashem piece is the same for all of us. So that we have
Ooh.
something that's all similar.
I wish
Oh.
That is a basic.
That is, we're
Like recognize another kid.
Person because we are all.
okay, so should I tell you the ending before? Yeah, should I the answer? Okay, fine. Like, I'm always the one who or should we work it through? Or I'm always the one who goes to the ends of the book and I'm just like, hey, what happened? We should go to the end of the book? Okay, fine. No?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah? Yeah, spoiler alert? Okay. Spoiler alert is, you're right, Sarah, that part of Hashem is really all the same.
Wow.
But what's different is the packaging. Okay? So this, I always think about this, what? The klipa. Or it comes down in different layers. So here's the idea. Let's read it inside for 1 second and let's build up the question. But the answer is, you are right. That part of Hashem, it really all the same. It says, so it's so, I'm it's so cute. It's so cute that the Baal Tanya asked this question. He's says you think that my neshama is the same as Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama? How does that even make sense? It says, Kamo Godal Milos Neshamos Ha'avos or Moshe Rabbeinu Aleim Hashalom Al Neshamos Dorosenu Elu De Ikve De Mashiach. So he says, for example, there are myriads and different types of neshamos. And why is that? So he gives an example. He says the souls of the patriarchs, of the avos, and the souls of Moshe Rabbeinu are far superior to the souls of our generation. And that is, we're the generation that are Ikvasad de Mashiach. We are the generation that precedes Mashiach. Okay? We're the ones who are going to see Mashiach. I was just studying with that's Chana, and I'm Moshe doesn't even go into Eretz Yisrael, and we're going to see Mashiach. So let's hold that thought 1 second. Shehim b'chinas akevim mamish legabei hamoach harosh. He's saying the latter souls, the ones that are Ikvasad de Mashiach, the ones that are us, what are we? We're ikvayim. We're from the Ikvasad de Mashiach. Here we go. Another soul, we're mamish at the end. From the Akev, we are from the heel. So the Baal Tanya is saying that the neshamos of Moshe Rabbeinu and the neshamos of the avos, they are all the brain, and we're the heels, the coarse heels that get dry at the end of the summer, right? We're the heels of it, but don't forget, we are the ones who are going to be seeing Mashiach. Something different. So he says, B'chol davar dar yesh rashei alafei Yisrael. Within every generation, there are those in the generation that are the heads of the generation. Okay? Close your eyes for 1 second. Who are the heads of the generation? You know them, right? Okay? You know who these heads of the generation are, right? But b'chol davar dar yesh rosh alafei Yisrael shenishmosehem heim b'chinas rosh. That they're the b'chin of the rosh. There are neshamos in the generation that are head souls. Okay? They're the souls that are from the head. V'moach lagabe neshamos hehiman v'amei haaretz. And then there are the ones that are the head and the brain in comparison to the masses and to those who are I love this word, amei haaretz, right? People of the land, people who are just regular people, right? What? Layman, right? Okay. So it says, V'china nefashos lagabe nefashos, ki kol nefesh klula mi nefesh ruach neshama. That every nefesh and neshama, what we're talking about here is the world of neshamas it's a big thing. It's not necessarily it's not I'm saying we're talking about it so casually, but these neshamos of the heads of generations, they are their Moshe Rabbeinu's in your generation, right? They're Moshe Feinsteins of your generation, the Chaim Kanievskis of your generation, right? The big tzaddikim of your generation, they're the heads. Our neshamos are the feet. Now the question is, if you were to scrape a cell from your scalp and scrape a cell from your foot, it's the same DNA. It's the same essence. It is of the same kind. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's a toenail or if it's a head. They actually talk a lot about the nails here, the toenails. That your nail cells are the same cells as also as your brain cells. And I think it's a lot because the nails are... Is what?
Because it's only Like once you cut it off.
Once you cut it off, it's dead. But right, it's like on its way out, but it still contains within it the same thing that was in the head cells. Okay, so now we understand that there are many neshamos. They all have a piece of Hashem in it, but somehow they look different and act different. It would be super boring if we were all the same. It helps us grow, and meet other people because we're different. But really, inside, in like our essence, we really all contain the same thing. But there are some neshamas that come from the head, and there are neshamas that are on the feet. What's the difference? The difference is the way that it comes down into this world. It's a pipeline of neshamas coming down. Remember how we spoke about the time of the first Beis HaMikdash that what was the presence of Hashem went straight from, this was like all the way back, the last class of Tanya, that the presence of Hashem was so clear, it literally took it took the express train from the world of Atzilus straight into this world of Asiya, and it was just like Hashem was everywhere. Those neshamos that come from Chachma of Atzilus, those neshamos of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Tzaddikim of the generation of Rebbas, they go straight from Atzilus. They're like the ones that come like, you know, the packaging you order from like, I'm trying to think like what website, like Farfetch, and they're like, it's really nice. And then there's like when you order from the Outnet and it's like, it's like a little schwach, the packaging, right? Like it's like wrapped a lot of times with DHL, it was like thrown into your house. It looked like somebody tampered with it. You're not sure, right? And then like I had this when I was like for Moe's bar mitzvah. I was making like literally like l'shem yichud. I bought these like Prada shoes, whatever. And by the way, I ended up returning them because like Chad was like, it's too much. You can't have a logo with bar mitzvah, whatever. But like I remember like opening up that package and it was like packed in like 3 boxes till you got the package, and it was so beautiful, it was so perfect. It had like the tissue paper in it with the stick, with the like everything like wrapped in a bag, like till you unpacked it, right? And it was perfect and it was pristine and it was beautiful. Those are the neshamos, the head neshamos of the generation. That doesn't mean that if I order the same exact thing, but it's from like a random website, it was from eBay, somebody pre-owned it, they shipped it, they said it was new, it was perfect, and it came into my house, but it looked like it was like rummage. Those are neshamos of the heels. Those are neshamos of the toenails. They still contain within it the same shoes. And they're perfect, those same shoes. The packaging is different. It got stuck in a warehouse. I always think of you, Sarah, when it was like our sukkahs. And she ordered like curtains for her sukkah. And she like, literally, she couldn't get it. It was coming on sukkah. She literally drove to the Amazon warehouse, picked it up, and was like, give me my package, right?
You have to hear Sarah say this story.
I know.
So one day, like also how she says it is.
The delivery of the story is amazing.
Excellent.
But where the packaging of the neshama comes down a little bit different, and it has an effect on the neshama. So bottom line,
you're saying, you're talking about the heels and
the head.
the head, but then you're talking about like lower packaging and.
It's all in the packaging. The shoes were the same. The Prada shoes came from whoever random person on eBay is the same as the ones that came from Saks Fifth Avenue.
We're not talking about the way you look.
It's not necessarily the way, right?
But is it the nefesh of Bahamas versus the nefesh of Elokus? Like
This
the
now we're
shoes are the
talking
nefesh
about.
Elokus?
Now we're talking about just the nefesh elokis, and the nefesh elokis comes down with packaging also.
Okay.
It comes down with packaging. It could come down in beautiful packaging, or it could come like it was roughed up. It could come like those scary minivans that deliver Zara boxes. What?
Can we change our packaging yet?
So that's a very good question. Can we change our packaging?
Yeah,
So
Tzaddik Barolo.
Tzadik Baralo.
No, it sounds like not. That's coming from Hashem.
So here's the thing. Okay, so it's a question. So let's say like I was born and I didn't grow up from, right? Let's say like I didn't grow up religious, right? And that's just how it was. That was my packaging that I came down to. That does not diminish my spiritual capacity. That doesn't mean that I can't reach the levels of somebody who went to Beis Yaakov for 17 years because she looks one way. Her packaging might be pristine and my packaging may not be. But as I realize that I have within me spiritual capacities that might be even greater than those of people who look like they have pristine, perfect packaging.
This is the concept of like, Hashem's not going to ask you why weren't you like Moshe Rabbeinu. He's going to say why weren't you the best Sarah. Like,
but by the way, take it even one more because you just quoted Tanya. Whoa! Because Hashem is not going to ask us, were we like Moshe Rabbeinu? He's going to ask us, were your maisim like that of Moshe Rabbeinu? Because maybe I don't have the spiritual capacity of a Moshe Rabbeinu, but my actions can be just as good as the actions of Moshe Rabbeinu if I finish Tanya and perfect my behaviors. But that's exactly it. Hashem's not going to ask us, you weren't like that person. Hashem's never going to say, how come you weren't like this one? And this is why we all come out differently, because yes, we all have to bring out different, we're all different parts of the puzzle. So if we all have to finish our own, if we have to all do our own tafkid, Hashem gives us different packaging, right? You know, when you do a puzzle and you like look for the corner pieces and you're like, boom, 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 right? Okay, tzaddik, 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 right? A person with perfect spiritual capacities, right? And then as you fill in the walls, you're like, oh, those are the also the good people of the generation, right? And then you get to the middle and you're like, how am I supposed to find which tree comes with, I have no idea, right? So that's the same thing with neshamos. Those neshamos that come down pristine and perfectly, they have a very, very high spiritual capacity, and they came down in beautiful packaging. The ones that fell further, that are in Ikhus HaDemjicha, that are literally located in the heels and in your toes, they might have great spiritual capacity, but it comes down through the pipeline. It traveled further. Think about it. It descended further. And by the way, this going... Yeah.
Baal Tshuva is on a higher level than a tzaddik, though, so...
Right. A Baal Tshuva is
Like
on a higher
Rish
level than a
Lakish.
tzaddik. Right.
Well, maybe they traveled higher from
A Baal Tshuva can't, right? Makom Shabbat
Yeah,
Tshuva
but it
Umdim
doesn't
Ein Tzaddikim
fit
Gemurim. It doesn't
fit
fit.
Tanya. You
Right.
keep using the Tanya words.
Right.
I went through this already.
Yeah.
It's the way Tanya calls a tzaddik.
Is different than the tzaddik that we're talking
And
about.
all other chassidas, all other works, even from the Alter. It's like
Right. It's very different. The
Very
the tzaddik that we meet in Tanya is a different tzaddik.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
different.
So, but let's say these big tzaddikim of the generation. So now we come to the Rebbe, we're asking the question, we're like, why do we all look different? I don't understand. You said we're all the same piece of Hashem. And he answers us by saying, you actually all have the same thing. It's just the packaging that you come down with, and you are dealt different things, and you need to work on those things. But don't for 1 second think that you don't have the capacity to be able to reach that just because you're in the toenail and just because you're in this generation. A lot of times our generation gets a bad rep because we're like, oh, we're the lowest generation. We're furthest from Har Sinai, and we're furthest from, like, you know, Yetzias Mitzrayim. But honestly, we're closest to Mashiach, and that means that we might have very, very high spiritual capacities, but we come down in a very crass, I love that word, like packaging, right? Like a very messy packaging, and that causes what it looks different, okay? So that's one idea of how we're different, okay? So now he continues. Sorry, I think this is maybe where I forgot to highlight. Okay, fine. Now we're going to go to a little bit, take that mashal that we spoke about before with the developing in your brain and then coming out, and we're going to talk about, we'll develop that idea a little bit more. Okay, so he says, Ki yanikas v'chayes, Ki yanikas v'chayes nefesh, ruach and neshama shal amei aretz, the nurture and the life force of the nefesh, ruach, and the neshama of a simple person, right? We said the layman, like you said, Esti, hu nefesh, ruach, and neshama shal tzadikim v'chachamim, roshei b'nei Yisrael, shebedoram. They're, the nurture and the life force for, let's say, us regular people, which I would call myself a regular person, are drawn down from the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama of the righteous and the sages and the heads of Bnei Yisrael in their generation. So here's like our first insight into why we need tzaddikim and rabbanim and rebbas in our life. Okay, and I think it's a very important concept because people always ask me oh, are you going to what's going on there or whatever, and I'm like, great, they have the amazing cookies, right, and best coffee. Jackie's always like, they have the best milk, right, and I'm like, oh, Purim and Hamantash, and it was amazing. I went Purim night with Paloma and Adina, and I forgot for a second. It was Matzah Shabbos of Purim, and I walk in and I'm like, why is Paro here? It was 1:30 in the morning. I'm like, I know I'm really tired, but then I was like, oh my gosh, it's Purim. Paro was sitting there writing a krittel. I was like, 1 second, is it? I'm like, it's Pesach, and you get a little confused, right? But what's this idea? And I was like, what are you going to the Rebbe? So I think this is one of my first, one of my biggest takeaways I took from this parak is that when you are down here in this world and we're in the bottom, it's telling us that we are in the heels, we are in the toenails, we are the lowest, we're Ikvasat Mashiach, we're on the bottom. What do we do to draw down the Chachma of Hashem into us? We have dirty packaging. We're struggling. We are Yidden that are struggling. That's just what it is. We don't have Moshe Rabbeinu. We don't have Rashi. We don't have the Beis HaMikdash. But what do we have? We have these heads We have these souls of neshamos that are here in this world that are heads, they're head neshamos, okay? They come from the head. And that's where we're supposed to draw down from. We're supposed to get our life force from them. We're supposed to get our nurture from them. Just like Hashem had an idea in his head and then created us, in our generation, so too, like an analogy, we have the tzaddikim are the head, and the rabbanim are the head, and then where they're at the bottom to be able to catch from them. And we can draw down from them. Now, somebody who very sadly doesn't look up to tzaddikim and has a hard time connecting to them and doesn't go to a rav when they have their first instinct or question, it says that they still get it, but it's like from the other side. It's from the back. It's like when I'm just like throwing a dog a bone and I'm just like, here, oh, you want something? Oh, here, take it, right? Oh, you need a Yeshua, you need mazel, you need parnasa. Here, take it. I know you're only coming to me right now because you need, parnasa, but just take it. I'll give it to you. But it comes from, it says it comes from, I want to say the right word, mi bechinas achorim, like from the backside of the nefesh, ruach, and neshama of the scholars, of the tzaddikim. So it's kedai, like it's worth it to have a relationship with tzaddikim and rabbanim so that you can draw down from them. And I think that like I'm also very much like recently surrounded by a community with a rebbe. And like I know people joke and people make jokes like Paloma, I think people say this a lot, that like everything is like the Rav, Reb Yassi, whatever, and you're looking up Rav Moshe Weinberger, and like why is it like Shei's Taub? I'm looking up to people. TR we call him the Rav, right? It's because from them we draw our chayas down, and it shouldn't just be like, oh, I need something. I don't really trust you. I don't trust them, but I need this. I need a Yeshua now. Tell me which capital of Tehillim to say, right? It's not like that. When you have a real connection from them, you're able to draw down just like a father and a son relationship, a Rebbe and a Chassid relationship, a Tzaddik and a Talmud. You're able to draw down from them. Sorry, you want to say something?
I had a question, but I think I answered it in my head.
Oh, do you want to ask it? Ask it.
No, my question was, what's the connection between leadership and spiritual capacity? Because leadership is usually like someone who's dynamic, it's like with character traits, right? And spiritual capacity may not be connected, like someone could have tons of spiritual capacity, but not necessarily be charismatic, be good with words, have leadership capacity. So I was curious, but then it goes back to what you said about, the packaging. So we all have the same.
So spiritual capacity is a very cool concept, because like when you say spiritual capacity, what does that mean? Like when you think of spiritual capacity, what's the thought process?
It needs that pull to center yourself, to find the meaning inward, like that constant, like connect, like a little magnet. It's
like a little magnet of like knowing where everything really comes from. You have those kids who are just like maybe not academic, but like super spiritual. You have that? Or I just always use one of my kids as that example. I always have in my mind this one kid who's like, she's struggling in school, but she's like, Ma, like Elio and nobody's coming to our house. I'm like, yay! Do you know what They spells? Like, and then it's like, no, because I'm realizing that like, stop thinking that it's all about how they present or like how they show up or like, oh, this one, like I always think about this a lot. Like when I go to shul, I'm like, I just want all my girls like sitting next to me. I literally, I'm laughing at Mary laugh because honestly, you're my You're my role model. Like when I walked into shul and I'm like, I'm an only girl. So I always sat in shul by myself. And I walked into shul, I'm like, Mary's sitting with her 3 girls and everybody's like looking and pointing. One of them is like sleeping and she's just like stroking her hair. And I'm just like, that's what I want. But then it's like, I'm not ready for shul. I have nothing to wear. There's no clothing, whatever. And then it's like, and then there's just like my 6-year-old who just comes with me to shul every single Shabbos. And she has Shabbos toys. And she can't read and she doesn't know her Kriya yet. And it's fine. But it's like, she has a pull. Like she hears that like Azriel's going to this farm store and she's like, I want to go to this farm store. I'm like, why do you want to go to this farm store? It doesn't matter. I sense spiritual capacity. You can smell it. You know it. So I think that drive for spiritual capacity. Your doctor theory. We need to have like a Tanya with like pediatricians. When they have those like they bring in like doctors, like when they're talking about like some medical like rabbi doctors. Like a panel. We should have a rabbi and we'll bring Shei's Taub there and then we'll talk about these kids, like don't medicate them, right? Okay. So that spiritual capacity, that idea is that don't think for 1 second because you are not showing up or perhaps you're not religious or maybe off the derech and that clothing and that packaging is hiding who you are. That doesn't take away from your spiritual capacity. You could have the greatest spiritual capacity, but in the darkest clothing, and in order for you to take off the clothing or the dirty packaging, you have to then connect to a tzaddik of that generation, connect to a rebbe of that generation, because that's what gives it to you. That's where you find it. And if you don't find it forward facing, he'll throw it to you in the back anyway. You'll get it, but don't you want to have that relationship where you can? Shais Tav said the most incredible Yechida story, and I think it's very true that like when we go to a rebbe, like so there was a story of a I'm going to call him a tzaddik or just a big special yid, and he went to the Rebbe and Yechidus and asking him. He was coming to him. He's like, I see this is a great person. Hey, Moy, he's this great person. I wanna hear I wanna see this great person. And he's like, I walked out of Yechidus and I didn't recognize just that the Rebbe's great. He made me recognize how great I was.
That was in his Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah. That was it? I'm trying to remember. They made it into like a little It was about going to the Ola. Like that when you go to a Rebbe, they're not supposed to just give you and answer you and tell you what you need. They're supposed to. What they're helping you do is helping you peel off the ugly packaging of who you really are and tapping into what your neshama could do and telling you have the spiritual capacity for greatness. And that's really what it is when you're in Yechidus with the Rebbe, because they want to show you have greatness inside of you. You have kachas. You have strengths that you have no idea, and you're like, oh, I don't. I do this and I do that. I'm a terrible person. Stop worrying about all that. Inside of you, we all have the same essence, and they're supposed to bring out the greatness in you. That's a true tzaddik. And when you find that, when you have a connection with a Rebbitzin or a Rav or a Rebbe, whatever it is, or the Oel, that was his push to the Oel. Going to the Oel is that, yeah.
I have a Rav that I'm close to, like every time I hang up on him or every time I pick up the phone, he's like, you give me chazak. Like, thanks for the chazak. Like, hey, thanks for the chazak. I'm like, chazak, I called you. He's like, you give me chazak.
Yeah, someone just said they help you elevate yourself. Thank you. I don't know what her first name is. But yeah, that's really what it is. So when you go to the rep, when you go to the, he said you feel it there also? Like, that story
was, he was talking about, like, how we literally have, like, the most amazing opportunity. We live right here. Going to the Oel is a Yechidus with the Rebbe. And the reason why you feel elevated when you leave there is because the Rebbe believes in you. He sees your neshama and he sees your capabilities and your ability. Even if you're not able to see it, he sees it, and that's passed on to you, and that's why you leave in an elevated state.
Whoa, yeah. So it's like, we have some true Chabadis on here. They said they're connected to their soul because of the Rebbe. Nasi Adar has the general Yechida of the whole generation, right? So we spoke about this the first time around in Tanya, how like that. Remember we spoke about the head. Right, we talked about the neshama. Like, did we talk about this? That a rebbe is like a nefesh, or maybe it was in the beginning of this season. It was last time around. How like a rebbe is a nefesh klaus, that he has within him all the neshamos. It's almost like he's the head, he's the heart. He feels everything, the pain of everybody. And sometimes when you go to a rebbe and you have a question, he'll sit there and try to figure out that part of inside of you that you're struggling with, and he tries to find it inside of himself in order to heal you and to help you. So really, when you go to a Rebbe, it's much more than just like a bracha for this or for that. He's spending time to get to know you, to uncover the things that are blocking what you think is blocking your spiritual capacity, and you're supposed to come out feeling higher. So that's really what we're supposed to do. So you come down to this world, you might not come down the prettiest of the packaging, you might have gotten rerouted at Francis Lewis and then sent to another, where was it, Sunrise Highway? You might get rerouted to another warehouse. You know when you're like waiting for your package and you're like, rerouting, right? I ordered these bumper stickers for Purim for my father, like a TYH for carpool, and I ordered them and I paid extra in advance for them to come before Purim, and it was Matz Shabbos, and I looked at the tracking, and it was coming on Monday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's stuck there. And I really, really want it. Then on Sunday morning, I was like driving to Nechamas Tichel, and I see a FedEx truck coming to the block. I'm like, it's Sunday. Like, I feel like FedEx trucks don't come on Sunday, right? Like, mail doesn't really come on Sunday. And it came down my block and it dropped it off. And I was like, what on earth? Like, something that was stuck in another place was actually not. So don't for 1 second think that you're stuck in this lowest place because of your packaging and because of like, I don't have it easy or whatever. I was dealt this hand, or, I'm a Baal Shuva. I grew up in a house where my parents were very, very strict. But that's all packaging. Bottom line, we all have that same essence. And the Rebbe will help uncover it and unveil it for you if you can't find it. Okay, we'll end with like one last thought, and this is really how the parak wraps up. Were all those questions answered? Yeah, like those questions? Okay, so basically what we're learning is spiritual capacity. If you can't find it, go to a Rebbe, go to a tzaddik, someone in the generation of the dark. Okay, then it says, and this is actually just like one last thought, it's leaving us with this Nefesh Elokis. So we're saying that this Nefesh Elokis travels. Okay, the Nefesh Abahamis comes in through our blood. This Nefesh Elokis travels from Hashem into this world, from the world of Chachma into us. And it's personified in breath, that it comes from inside. And also another mashal is personified in the seminal drop that's created in the father's brain that comes through. So it leaves us with one more packaging mashal, okay, of how neshama comes down to this world. A great mashal that I heard, obviously from Shei Staub, was that the neshama of Rabbi Akiva. The neshama of Rabbi Akiva came into this world, right? When was he able to start? Okay, now you can imagine the neshama of Rabbi Akiva was tremendous spiritual capacity. I mean, we literally attribute all of you know how we say all those things on top of the letters, the crowns, right? Where Rabbi Akiva was able to discern every single one. All of Torah Shabbat Pez, Rabbi Akiva, right? So when did he start learning?
40.
At 40. What happened until 40? What was he doing until 40? He was a shepherd, right? He was a simpleton. He was a layman, right? And it explains that when his neshama came down to this world, it says his father was an Amma Aretz. Remember the story? His wife Rachel, what was his name? What was his father-in-law's name? Kaba Savua. Kaba Savua was not impressed with this Amma Aretz, with this layman of him. And he couldn't believe that this was who his daughter was marrying, right? He disowned her. She had no money. They slept on straw for 24 years, and he lived while he was amassing all these students, right? But what was so special about Rachel? What was so special about Rachel? Yeah, Rachel was his wife. Rachel. What was so special about her? What? Dahlia. Yeah, Dahlia. Oh my gosh, I did not know that. Isha's Rabbi Akiva. There's an amazing book on Rachel was his wife. Oh my gosh, I loved that as a kid. But what did she see within Rabbi Akiva?
Potential.
She saw his spiritual capacity. She's like, I am going to marry that guy. He's going to be amazing. And her father is like, he is literally a shepherd. He doesn't know Aleph Beis. I don't understand. My daughter who went to BJJ is marrying a guy from the streets. It doesn't make sense, right? Sorry, I'm calling out that seminary, but that is the top seminary, right? I don't even know. Maybe it's not. But how can my daughter relate to this? This doesn't make sense. And she said she saw that it was all in the packaging. And his father was an Amma Aretz. Rabbi Akiva's father was an Amma Aretz. And here it explains a little bit more in detail. It says Zuma shakasa b'zohar, and this is brought down in the Zohar. Shaha'ikar taloi sheyikadish atmo b'shas tashmish dafka. That specifically during marital relations, there is a concept of the thought of the father that he's having, the intent of the parents. Literally, during intimacy, that develops the child, not the spiritual capacity of the child, but the packaging of the child. It's like an interface comes down. And if you have holy, pure thoughts during intimacy, it states over here, based on the Zohar and the Baal Tanya brings it down further, when it says it's essential factor to conduct yourself in a holy manner, which is not the case with the children of the simple folk and their ilk. I like that word. Who don't conduct themselves. So people who don't have proper intentions, when the neshama comes down into this world, when the seminal drops then comes down and then develops in the womb of the mother, that comes down with an interface with, let's say, almost like a package of how you then relate to the world with your spiritual capacity. So Rabbi Akiva's father was an Amma Aretz, and it took 40 years for him to be able to peel it off, and then he became the biggest neshama. So one way that we can understand this, we can think about this, that it's just another garment, it's another lavush that you give to your child. Okay, God willing, you don't have to think about this right now all the time, and it shouldn't scare you. First when I heard this, I was like, oh my gosh, I have 6 children, right? But I think about it. I always joke that my last 2 are my neshama, my Google babies, because they were with proper intention, and I joke about it that it's intention, but it's the purest, realest intention when you want to bring a neshama down to the world. And then I'm like, when I say they're my Geula babies, sorry, I'm going to get so personal here. When I say they're my Geula babies, it's because I understand their spiritual capacity in a way that I did not necessarily understand with my other kids. And when you have that intention, it gives them garments that are spiritual garments. And when you don't have the intention, and when you're just you're a nothing, you're a good for nothing, you don't have it, you're a wild child, you're all this, you don't let them express their spiritual capacity because you're putting on more clothing and more layers. So just like during intimacy, when you have a thought, it creates the spiritual clothing. It just paused. So too, it's it's an interface that your child will have to deal with. So too, it's an interface that you have to deal with. You have to peel off klippas in order to get to your spiritual capacity. So you're saying, oh, I have a lot of clothing, I have a lot of, bad packaging. Okay, so go to the Rebbe, speak it out with him. It's okay. Bottom line, like Sarah said, it's all the same. We really do all have the same. But it has to come down in covering, it has to come down in layers, it has to come down different, it has to make it exciting. Okay, yes, questions. I know, there's so many questions. This is like
I'm going back
hard.
to the beginning, and because you're saying that we all packages, so I'm like, so why does she have 15 and why don't, if I have 2, like, if you're saying the darkness is the light, in the darkness, when we go through real hardships, and we all have been through hardships, and we're able to see how that was the most beautiful parts of our life that made us, grow and whatever, but then when we have good, and a lot of good, it's like, it's hard. So you're saying that, like, people that have less packaging or less darkness, what's...
So there's an idea of like somebody who could have beautiful packaging, but not necessarily, and I'm always going to look to Faigy for this, but not necessarily they have beautiful packaging, but they don't necessarily have the highest spiritual capacity. Ever think about that? People have beautiful outsides, but they can't, but they kind of like, right, and that's also, but what we're reiterating here is that people who, what?
Like they have it easy. It's like it's easy to serve Hashem. It's easy to make.
But because they worked through it and they flipped their Yetzer, they flipped
You don't
it.
know what they were.
I'm
and
asking
that's
from
the
right.
burden, like,
Right, there are people who tell me like, I always had it good. I always had it good. Like,
No, those are
they
people
think
like
that.
They think they always had it
Who
good.
says that? Anyone who goes through life and doesn't have any challenges is not actually living.
Right. It's the Ovid versus the Evet,
no,
right?
There are some people who are really strong over Hashem, are really connected, and they just Baruch Hashem have good. So is it like, are they supposed to?
And it could be that their spiritual interface is very beautiful, like the packaging they came down to, and they have high spiritual capacities. That's like a Moshe Rabbeinu.
Or they're disconnected.
Or they're disconnected. By the way,
Or that's very here and
this-
there. They need to work on their judging other angels.
right.
Maybe they need to look on their eyes.
You know, like, we have this concept of waiting for the shoe to drop. That's what I mean. Is it like, does it come from like, I'm going to be talking to like, if you have good and good and good, and you're like,
That's
what was the
trauma
last?
response.
No, that's very bad. Yeah.
Right.
That's not it. No. If it's good. You keep thinking Hashem and it keeps sending you more and more and more. We're not supposed to say, I want bad to it.
That's base Alpha Foundation right there.
Right.
She said trauma.
I know, it is trauma.
Trauma response.
No, yes. But a big trauma thing that we've learned is that
Not
just...
meaning that you're worthy of good, that's a trauma response.
No,
Right.
I didn't see that. I said
Meaning that
if I have a few
Borrow
years
time. There's no
of-
such thing as...
If I
Right.
have a few years of sorrows or like I had a hard childhood and I'm like, oh, I know I'm an amazing person because of stuff I did in order to get there through my heart, and then I have like 5 years of just good, like parnassa, healthy kids, like good, like
Good.
right. So you're supposed to just.
You're not supposed to wait for the shoe to drop. You're not supposed to say something bad is going to happen. No. If
I
anything...
had the difficult thing, like God's given me 5 years
Yeah.
of amazing.
No.
That's the calculation.
Also, remember that you don't have a choice when you come down to this world. Like, it's not like, oh, I have a choice how I'm going to act. Your neshama comes down to this world with the packaging that came down to. You don't have a choice. Rabbi Akiva had to peel off klippas after 40 years, but he didn't have a choice that his father didn't have proper intention.
You do choose your parents.
Oh, you do choose your parents?
Yes.
What? I did not know that.
You sat down, looked at the dinner table, said, "I want to be part of this dinner table."
Really? I did not know that. Oh, that's so good. So we chose our parents did not choose us?
When your kids complain, you don't say you chose us. It's like,
No, I did not know that. I love that. I did not know that. I know.
My kids know. Every time I'm trying to say, Mom, I you chose each other. Like, what do you want to
Yeah. By the way,
The
the heels are coming out. Yeah.
So by default. It's like going
That's
to
the
a
bottom.
grocery
Yeah.
and
Okay, one second.
you're
Let's just go back 1 second. Sheva was just asking a question about, let's say, like when the baby develops. So when the baby develops, the idea of where it comes from the brain and then it says it descends into the womb of the mother. What happens is in the womb, if you think about it, like, I know, did we talk about this? Like the zygote, when it starts splitting and the zygote, right? Yeah. The zygote, it starts to split and then it starts to differentiate. That's where differentiation happens. When it comes just as the seminal drop, that's essence, it's pure everything. As it sits in the mother in 9 months, all the differentiation is similar to the differentiation of the neshamas of Yidden. So some of the cells that was, or one cell, some of those cells become eyes, some of them become ears, some of them become toes, and some of them become your brain. so too, but it's the same cell that all started it. So too, it all started with Hashem, with one neshama, with one idea, with chachma from the world of Atzilus, that Hashem developed a yid, and then it differentiated over time. Through the descent, it multiplied and it became something else. So then we have Yidden who live up north, and we have live down south, and then you have Yidden who are from and Yidden who are not from. It doesn't matter, because we're really all from the same thing. The packaging is different. Some of them are in Mexico, some of them are in North America, some of them are in Israel. So too, some of them are hands, some of them are feet, some of them are toes. But bottom line, if you look at the toes of a human, we have the same cells in our toenails as we do in our brain. But now, what Sheva was saying is that our generation is Ikvus of the Mashiach. So we might look like we're the lowest, but we're telling everybody out there, don't even for 1 second think we're the lowest. We are the same as the Dar that lived during the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, because we have the same essence. But let's clear off our interface. Let's peel off the klippas. Let's find the good in every single yid. Let's connect to more yidden. Let's connect to our tzaddikim and our rebbas that will remind us of where we come from, and then we can continue to draw down the chachma of Hashem. And where do we do it? All the way down here in this world of Asiyah.
Love that.
Okay, and that's when, and then there's contractions, and then we're mamash born, right? And then it's like, okay, we're mamash at the end. We're mamash at the end. That's how I'm gonna. Okay, fine. I'm gonna end it here because it's been a nice amount of time. Thank you so much for joining.
Faigy, the minias was definitely.
The minias in the beginning was definitely worth it. Okay, thank you everyone who joined on.
Everyone have a seat.